Commissioners, Paul Weekland. Well, the first thing I noticed in the presentation is there were no certainties. There were no guarantees given that these regulations will protect the state of California. We would like to see some punishments, some penalties, if these regulations do not protect the state of California. Our managers need to be punished because they are not coming over the top and being truthful and honest. They have been harnessed and hobbled to the point where they are not allowed to be able to do their job properly because of the political maneuvering that is going on here for aquaculture. Rob Roth says there has been no problems ever in history. Well, we know that he's not being quite accurate there, don't we? I would like to remind everyone of the California golden trout, how it's on its way to extinction because of outplanting of aquaculture products. And I think before this goes any further, we need a presentation on the $4-point-something million you were given to protect the California golden trout from extinction, from the introduction and hybridization. That is a state fish, that inland fish, that we need to know more about because you have failed to protect it because you keep allowing the stocking. The other things that have never been covered that we keep asking for over and over is what happens in large flooding times like right now. These ponds have overflowed. Are they still not being tributary to the waters of the state? Earthquakes. Do we have full guarantees, protection that if earthquake comes, there is no chance that any of these fish will ever be spilt into a waterway of the state? These alone, gentlemen, should be concerns enough to show that this situation needs to stop. We also know that there's a mechanism in nature when there's too much genetic diversity, too much hybridization, that large die-offs occur. The fish spawn, the broadcast spawner's spawn turns into acid, this blue-green algae, and it kills off large numbers of fish. It's nature's way to cleansing and purifying itself of these unwanted genetic cultivars and hybrid fish that are being introduced into our waterways. And then on top of that, the diseases. Then the antibiotics are needed for these stocking ponds. And do you really want your children to be eating the fish that are coming from these stocking ponds because of the way that they need to feed them, the waters in which they are being contained? You know, you just gloss over the hard parts. Oh, yeah, we call that an eyesore. And Mr. Rogers will vote on every day of the week to get rid of an eyesore. Cleanse the files, purge the records. Anything that makes us look bad, we jettison and we start fresh, start clean, and start new again. But we know what you're going to do. You're going to stall, because that's what you do. And because the tactical timeline is not here yet, and the attack from aquaculture hasn't started, we're going to wait.
Paul, you're at 9 of your total of 10 minutes for the day, just to let you know.
Try and do better.
Okay, that's the end of our public speakers. Any comments or questions from the commission?
Can I get, Jim?
Commissioner Bayless.
Yeah, can I get staff to come back up and, was it Scott? Scott, you had a chart. I don't know if you can pull it back up of the cost of the fees.
Can we pull the presentation back up again? Thank you.
What I see a disconnect is those fees seem low, but they don't capture what we heard or the scaling of fees, right? Do you have a range? Do you know now what those range of costs of these businesses could be?
Well, when I first talked to the implementation team that's doing the private stocking evaluations, we've done about over 500 this year so far. It was broad. I mean, some of the regions that had centrally located offices, like in for example, the offices that are around San Francisco Bay, it takes a long time to go through traffic. So that's where the broad range is. What they're talking about, I don't know if you guys have seen the version of ISOR that they're commenting in the letter. There's like multiple versions of this ISOR because it's been draft and it's been going back and forth. So in the cost, he talks about the range of what the projected cost would be. The reason why I went to a structure like this, instead of charging everybody $500, when the guy's just down the street, try to build something that we can incrementally deal with as we get into larger components.
Sure. I get your logic. I'm just trying to understand, if you're a business, you have to understand what those costs could be to your business, right?
That's correct.
So are we developing a range so that business person can understand what those costs are?
If I may also, Scott, what you just answered to Commissioner Bayless was fees paid to the department.
Right.
That's correct.
That's a minor fraction of the fees that will be paid by the owners of these water bodies
Right.
to consultants and other people, and God help them if they had to do an EIR. That's the number that I think Commissioner Bayless wants to see.
My point is, if you're going to present the fees, I want to understand what that business is hit with. And Salke, go ahead.
Yeah, what you're seeing here, the state's complex and very diverse. We could come up with ranges. This is a fee schedule if we were to do the inspections and the survey. So this gives you an idea what it would cost us to do it. I don't know what a consultant would charge, but if we were available, if somebody was 2 hours away and we had the time and they requested us to come out and do the inspection, you could calculate what that out-the-door cost would be for us to do it. I don't know what consultants charge. We could look into that. But it's going to vary depending on the complexity. For example, there may be places, and we've been talking with the industry how to lend some more predictability. There are parts of the state, because of the distribution of some of these sensitive species, are going to be very complex to evaluate. There are other areas, based on where they are, we know there's going to be almost none of the species, if any. It'll be very quick and dirty and may not even require a visit. As Scott said, we have over 525, or I think it's 555 we've done of these. We've got quite a bit of experience on the time it takes to do these and by area. So what I'm hearing is we could generate some ideas by region what it might cost somebody, at least for us to do it for them, and we could look into consultants, but I just don't know what they charge for these kinds of things. But this would be what it would cost the grower for us to come out and do it. So you can calculate these. I don't know where you get $7,000 from, but unless we threw a picnic party and spend all day out there, but the cost could vary tremendously. It could be from very cheap to, if we got to drive halfway across San Bernardino County, you can run up a tab quick. No different than calling a plumber, frankly. They charge you by the hour and a visit, and we're trying to help give you some idea of what it would cost.
That.
We value plumbers very much. I'm just saying.
And they're talking about having to pay a consultant like the city of Hercules did down in Contra Costa County. It's like $20,000 a month.
And I mean, the problem with some of these decision species take multiple visits, and have to be multiple visits on the right time of year to determine if they're present or not. So that's where the complication comes in, and that's where the numbers they start throwing around blow up when you start trying to.
If you're a business, you've got to understand your cost. It can't. That's my point. So I think in fairness to them, we have to get a better understanding of what these costs are. That's.
Well, I agree with that entirely.
Commissioner Rogers,
if you're
Commissioner Richards has been waiting a long time,
sorry.
and you need to go through the chair, please. Commissioner Richards.
Sorry, Richard.
duly chastised.
Yes, I know. Geesh. I have a couple questions, and then I have some thoughts. Salke and Scott, really. In your opinion, has the aquaculture industry been responsive to the negotiations here? Have they been actively involved and engaged here?
And from my perspective, absolutely. It's been a little difficult. I mean, remember, you saw the map. This is a game changer. It's a very huge change for a big sector of the industry. And so we understand this is a very different approach, and we've been working with them. You were presented a draft proposal back in October. You requested we continue work with the industry. We have. There are some requests you physically don't have the authority to address, and Scott kind of tried to go through those. And we're here today to kind of get guidance. Is there information missing that you think would be helpful? And if so, we'll go back and work on it. Now, one quick other note. There was somebody commented that folks don't know about this going on. Well, that's because we haven't filed a notice yet. Right. I mean, you formally haven't started a review yet. So, yeah, there's people that don't know about this because they're looking for it to show up in your normal notice register. So you have two choices. One is have us go back and keep working on this. The other is to file a notice, which formally starts the APA process, which is a public review process. And you have up to a year or more to deal with it. So you have choices.
Right, and I know that, and I appreciate that. And really this is what my second question was, but I think you just answered it. In your opinion, would further negotiations with them be helpful?
There is an area that they have still intense interest in that there may be some room for us to look at further. Or two. I'll cover them real quickly. One is the impact to business. Unfortunately, we can only report what we know about that impact, and they've been trying to get that data. They haven't really gotten us anything. So under the law, I go with what I have. If you want to wait and encourage them to get us that information so the ISOR can more accurately reflect the business impacts, that would be one. Area that could use definite improvement. We just don't know what those are. And the second area is this notion of, which I was hinting at, there are areas where we know we got a lot of species problems, and it's just going to be a permit by permit slog fest. And then there's other areas like down in maybe Fresno County in the middle of ag, where you've got an irrigation pond, where can you look at areas and carpet permit them, or designate an area as a checklist permit? Those are things we could explore to streamline and minimize the cost for some of the operators in some areas of the state. So those are two areas that definitely I think there's more room to work with. The question is, do you want to do it informally before you go to notice? Do you want to do it after you go to notice?
Okay, and that's where I'm headed to. Because to me, and I didn't hear you say they weren't responsive. I heard you say they were. I heard you say you are working with them. I heard you say that there are continuing unresolved issues, recognizing we may not agree with everything that they want to do, of course. I mean, that we may get to that point, but I'm not hearing you're at that point. And the challenge becomes is when we adopt some regulations here and then notice those regulations, we are now working off of that template versus maybe we could actually do a better template. So my inclination is we should probably do that, the delay. But then I have my final question, and Richard, then I'll gladly turn this over. I heard George Osborne say something about a lawsuit and that the AG has asked them for a delay. I'd like to understand that just a little bit better, because it on the face of it, and I'd like to have it so I really understand it, on the face of it seems reasonable to me that we actually might want to know the resolution of that before we actually go to do these notices and do all this kabuki dance before we really know what we're talking about. So,
sure, your question far exceeds my understanding of the judicial process.
Well, most of the questions I asked you do, so.
So I will have Nancy Murray from our legal counsel, who's fully involved and recognizes there's ongoing litigation, but she can tell you what she can tell you.